6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff.
Hey everybody, welcome to Armchair Rocket Science with a live broadcast. We're going to be covering the Elon Musk's update of Starship live from Boca Chica at the actual launch site. And our special guest is our resident rocket scientist. We call her Rocket Mama, Stephanie Osborne. How you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing pretty good. A little bit tired tonight, Joe. I've
Yeah.
been busy today.
I meant to send you a link to a time lapse of where they lifted the second stage up onto the first stage
Mm-hmm.
with the new tower. It's
Oh, okay.
they call it the chopsticks. They actually stacked the vehicle on the pad,
Nice. Nice.
and they've built this crane around the uh, uh, built it on the tower to actually grab the booster, pick it up, swing it over, set it on the launch pad, then come come back down, pick up the boost or the second stage, which is called Starship, swing it over and set it down on top of the booster, and then it
And
has pins that lock in and
mm-hmm.
everything. And they did it last night. About they started the lift at 11 around 11 o'clock local time,
Mm-hmm.
and the commentators were signing off at 12:30.
Nice. So they had it completely stacked in an hour and a half.
Yeah, and the first time they ever did a lift was with the second stage. They crane set the first stage, which is just it's mind boggling because a year ago, if you can see in the background the thing, I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna add a like it. No, it's not a video clip. It's a picture. It's an overlay. Let me grab that real quick and add it to our thing. Where'd it go? I lost it again. I should have already had it preloaded.
I'm glad I'm not
Joe,
the only one.
here is your reminder.
Alexa, stop. Yes, I have a spy in my house at all times. Okay, here it is. Let me add this. Open. Just takes a second to load, and then I'll overlay it right there. The upper part of the rocket is the
Mm-hmm.
what they call the chopsticks, to where they're going to catch it out of the air. It's a reference to the Karate Kid movie
Uh-huh.
where Miyagi, tried to catch the fly with the chopsticks. Well,
Uh-huh.
that's what that's supposed to be. That's why they call it that.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And the bottom arm is a QD arm, a quick disconnect,
Mm-hmm.
and it also stabilizes the booster with the first or the Starship setting on top of it.
That makes sense. That looks
And
good. I like the design. That's a
it's crazy.
no, it's a good design.
It's a good design. But what blows people's minds, like I said, a year ago, none of that existed.
Yep.
A lot of it was still raw material.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're going to act this way. Okay, it's acting. All right. SpaceX just went live, so
All
let me go
right.
ahead and pull this down to get us ready. Oh, and since I'm doing that, I must run this across the bottom. The copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes as criticism, comment, news reporting, that's what we're doing, teaching, scholarship, education, and research, Fair use is permitted by the copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing video and audio from SpaceX YouTube channel. To learn more about SpaceX and the Starship, go to their website, check out their website at www.spacex.com. Yeah, and this will scroll across the bottom at all times. So, don't sue me.
Yeah, we're not claiming any copyrights
No.
here. We're just reporting,
And
I'm here to provide commentary.
yes. And you can probably understand some of the stuff that he says, some of the fancy terms.
Well, I mean, I worked in the program for how long?
30 years at least?
No, it wasn't that. It was about 20.
20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And actually sat console for many shuttle missions, from what I understand.
yes, and also worked on ISS some. So,
Oh, okay.
as I did some of the preliminary planning work for the various increments on ISS.
Okay. And what do you think about them now possibly extending ISS to 2030? Is that pushing their luck with it?
I
That's
don't
a long.
know. It's worked this long. Why not? It never was what we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Because we got a mandate handed down from the White House on it, and it was pure politics.
Yeah.
Thou shalt make. It was originally Space Station Freedom.
Yes.
It was an entirely American effort, and the White House decreed, "Thou shalt make it an international space station." And the problem with that is that there were no oversight organizations.
There were no standards set that this connection outlet needs to be here, this port needs to be here,
or
dimensions
this connection needs to be this voltage, for
yeah.
that matter. So the different parts provided by the different nations don't talk to each other, don't run each other. I mean, it's they have cables running everywhere, and they pass data back and forth via sneakernet. It's that bad.
Sneakernet. What is that? USB drives?
No, yeah. You grab
Okay.
you grab a thumb drive and you carry it into the next module.
All right, here we go. Oh. Okay, those little pins you see that were sticking out were the thermal tiles, where the thermal tiles plug in. And the thermal tiles, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, the thermal tiles are standard. Every thermal tile, or 99% of the thermal tiles on that, are all the same. Now this is cool.
Yeah, it's like right yourself and land.
This was unheard of, what, just 10 years ago?
I wouldn't go that far, because back when I was working the program, they were working on the DCX.
Oh, okay.
And that would have done this.
Yeah.
So.
And that's the static fires of the boosters. That was just 3 engines. And this was a few months ago. Now, did you like that picture of the... Okay, here we go. They're going to...
Shades of Tony Stark.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, welcome to Starbase. So it's been almost 2 years since our last update, and a lot has happened since then. By the way, I'm getting like a strange audio feedback. I don't know. Do I sound okay to you guys? Okay, great. So it's been 2 years since we had our first Mark 1 rocket, and a lot has happened since then. We're going to go through the progress, but I'm just incredibly proud of the SpaceX team and all the support that we received from Cameron County, from Brownsville, from South Padre. And if, I know some of you in the audience, so thank you very much for your support. So before we jump into the details of what's happened over the past 2 years, I think it's worth just talking a bit about this, like why are we doing this? This, I mean, pretty epic, but what's the sort of deep meaning behind this? Like, why build a giant reusable rocket? Why make life multiplanetary? And
That's easy.
I think this is just
Ask the
an
dinosaurs.
incredibly important thing
Absolutely.
for the future of life itself.
That's exactly what he
and
believes.
there's both I call it the sort of the defensive reason or the life insurance reason. That's one part of it, which is that there's always some chance that something could go wrong on Earth. The dinosaurs are not around anymore.
Like you just said.
There could be some calamity that where we do ourselves in, or there's a natural disaster. Now I'm naturally an optimist, so I think the probability of that is low, but it is not zero. And eventually the sun will expand. It might take a few 100 million years, so don't hold your breath. But eventually, the sun will expand and destroy all life. So for those who really care about not just the humans, but all the life on Earth, it is very important, essential, that over the long term, that we become a multi-planet species and ultimately even go beyond the solar system and bring life with us. And we are life's stewards, life's guardians. That the creatures that we love can't build spaceships, but we can, and we can bring them with us. And I think that's pretty important, for those that care about the environment and care about all the creatures on Earth. So that's like I would say like the defensive or the life insurance reason for life collectively. But there's also an inspiring reason, which is that life can't just be about solving problems. There have to be things that inspire you, that move your heart, that make you glad to be, when you wake up in the morning, you're excited about the future. And going out there and being a multi-planet species and being a spacefaring civilization and making science fiction, not fiction forever, I think that's one of those things. I think that's what fires me up the most. Is like, let's go out there and find out.
If you look, there's no teleprompters down
universe
there.
is all about.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Are there other species out there? Maybe. Hopefully it's. I mean, we want to go find out what the heck's going on. What is going on? I mean, how do we get here? What's the meaning of life? 42. But what's the question? And
yeah, he's a nerd.
if we go out there and we explore
he's as big a geek as we
the
are.
galaxy, ultimately, then we can find out some of these questions, and it will just be very exciting to do that, and something we can all look forward to. And even whether somebody chooses to go or not, I think vicariously we can all go there, just like with Apollo, where only a handful of people went to the moon, but in a sense we all went there. Humanity went there, and so even if somebody doesn't choose to go themselves, I think vicariously through others, they will go, they will understand, they will experience the universe, and I think that's incredibly fundamental to an exciting future. And that's why we're doing this. So. And yeah. Now, one of the rebuttals we'll sometimes hear is like, sure, but what about all the problems on Earth? And I completely agree that the vast majority of resources should be dedicated to solving problems on Earth. Absolutely. I'd say like more than 99% of our resources should be oriented towards solving problems on Earth. But it's important to note that like
Stephanie's saying thank you, Elon.
Budget is only 0.36% of the federal budget, and in fact, of the national GDP, it's less than 1/10 of a percentage point. So it's like we're only
NASA
spending
budget hasn't changed
0.1%
numerically
of our
since the
resources on space.
60s.
I think that's okay.
It's never been adjusted for inflation.
So just to just make sure
Which
people don't
is
think like,
a shame.
Is he suggesting that we just spend everything on space? No, I'm suggesting like maybe 0.5% or something like that. We'll probably be okay. So, and I think given this establishing security for life itself and having an exciting future and inspiring kids about the future, I think it's worth it, basically. Yeah. So, well, how do we do this? How do we make life multiplanetary? What's the first step? And the essential technology, the holy grail breakthrough that's needed, is a rapid and completely reusable rocket system. So this has never been accomplished before. And there's a lot of people for the longest time thought this was not possible. Now with Falcon 9, we've been able to show that you can have reuse of a boost stage and reuse of the fairing. So with Falcon 9, we've demonstrated a lot of reuse of the boost stage and of the fairing. We've have over 100 reflights of the fairing of the booster, and I'm not sure of the fairing number, but it's a lot. And that's a big step in the right direction. With Starship, we're aiming for full and rapid reusability. So,
okay, I'm curious
we
to
obviously
know
need
how
to
they
accomplish that. That's not
recover the fairing
done yet, but
parachute.
Okay.
But the
Once it
success
gets,
is one of the possible outcomes.
Has it got a beacon or something on it so they can?
Which I always think is when embarking on an endeavor,
it's got a big airfoil type. They used to try to catch them with the ship,
design,
but it never worked. So they just let them
so
land in the water,
and we're aiming for
within an hour, there's a
which is why
boat there to pick them up.
Is going to take off and then fly back to.
My co-pilot is about to come into the screen here.
Okay.
Land on the arms, which does sound insane.
That's also the landing pad is the tower.
Yeah.
And but I if it does come in too fast and shear off the arms, then I guess it will be a farewell to arms.
Yeah, I want to talk to this guy.
I have to warn you, they're only going to get worse. So, here I'd really just like to congratulate the SpaceX team and also thank NASA, the FAA, the Space Force, and everyone and all of our customers that have helped us get to this point. It's insanely hard to get a rocket to orbit. Insanely difficult. I have huge respect for anyone who's gotten a rocket to orbit. It's so hard. And we've had 144 successful launches, 106 landings. Yeah, I mean, actually, these days I have to look on the internet, say, how many landings have we had? I'll have to ask the internet.
And a few unscheduled rapid disassemblies.
Flight proven.
Not recently, though.
No.
Launches.
83 reflights.
And
Nice.
although I have to say, I still have
And one of those
launch PTSD every time
106
the rocket
landings
takes off. I'm like,
is about to make its 11th flight.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I just see all the ways that it could fail. Like, but and then this year we're actually aiming to have around 50 launches, so it's about a launch per week on average, and yeah, so it's a hell of a year we got ahead of us, and in terms of
He's still here.
mass
Yeah.
to orbit, if you look at like tonnage to orbit,
He's been good at not
this
touching the keyboard.
bar chart that we'll show here really illustrates how profound a rapidly reusable rocket, especially a big one, is.
Oh, nice.
What effect that has on total tonnage to orbit. So the total mass to orbit to date of Earth is around 15,000 tons, maybe 16,000 tons. And the mass per Starship, after a year, just 1 year of launching, if it launches 3 times a day, would be equal to all the mass to orbit of Earth to date. That's just one Starship.
Yeah, that's his goal.
I think
Launching
3
times
launches
for
a day.
year. Now, if you have,
Holy crap.
Oh, 3 times a week.
10
That's what he can do if he can do it 3 times a
Then-
day.
and we'll have more than that. Our goal is to be making at least a one stack per month, and then ultimately potentially a ship every 3 days. There'll be more ships than there are boosters because the booster actually, even though it's gigantic, will come back in about 6 minutes. Excitement guaranteed. So it only takes about 2 minutes on ascent and then about 4 minutes to return. So you'll know soon. The ship has to complete at least 1 orbit around Earth, and sometimes maybe 3 orbits or more. And each orbit is 90 minutes. So the ship is probably, reusable about every 6 to 8 hours.
So they're looking at an
that's why we say sort of
altitude
3 times a day for the
comparable
ship.
shuttle.
And in theory,
Yeah.
the booster is capable of being reused every hour. So the propellant pumps are designed to fill the rocket in about half an hour. So this really is designed for rapid reusability. So if you can do roughly a million tons to Earth orbit, that's comfortably over 100,000 tons to the surface of Mars, maybe 150,000 tons, depending on how good the landing system is. So now you can only go to Mars every 2 years. And I think roughly you need about 1 million tons on Mars to have a self-sustaining
minimum
city.
energy, every 2 years. Yeah.
The critical threshold
If you're not worried about energy, you can go
Mars
Mars.
is to have a city that is self-sustaining. It's going to be incredibly difficult to make a self-sustaining city because if it's missing any ingredient at all, however minor that ingredient is, then if the ships from Earth stop coming for any reason, the city will die out. So the critical threshold to pass one of the most important great filters for any species is to have the other planet no longer dependent on the original planet. So I don't know exactly what that tonnage is, but I suspect it is at least, if one tries to get the right order of magnitude, about 1 million tons. Hopefully it's not more than that. Starship is capable of doing that. It's capable of getting 1 million tons to the surface of Mars and creating a self-sustaining city. And I think we should try to do that as soon as we can. The window of opportunity may be open for a long time, and I hope it is, but it may also be open for a short time. And this is the first This is the first point in the 4.5 billion year history of Earth that it has been possible. I mean, let that sink in. Or if there's a sink, let it in. Still knocking at the door. I mean, it's a sentient sink. Let's face it. Let it. I mean, come in.
He gets sidetracked just a little.
So 4.5 billion years.
He's
Been a
got
while.
he's got a good
This is the first time it's been possible.
handle on puns too.
We need
Yeah.
to seize the opportunity and do it as quickly as possible. I mean, to be frank, civilization is feeling a little fragile these days. And like I said, I'm an optimist, but I think we got to protect the downside here and try to build that city on Mars as soon as possible and secure the future of life. And it's going to be an incredibly exciting adventure. Now, the sales pitch for going to Mars is that it's going to be cramped, dangerous, difficult, very hard work. You might die.
He's not
And,
sugarcoating it, is he?
No,
I
but
hope
he's
you like
right.
it.
Yeah.
So far from being some sort of escape hatch, it will be extremely difficult and dangerous and tough. Mars is a fixer-upper of a planet, and so it's going to take some work to make it easy to live there. But one day we could make Mars a planet like Earth, and I think we should. So just some facts about Starship, and these numbers will evolve over time. So the height of the ship is about 50 meters, 164 feet. The 9-meter or
That's the
30
second
diameter.
stage.
Well, you can just see it basically.
Yeah.
It's got about 1,200 tons of propellant on the ship, and thrust is about 1,500 tons. Now these numbers will, we'll probably add more propellant over time, increase thrust. Diameter will stay the same. It's a huge pain to change diameter. So that'll tend to stay the same, but it'll probably get a little bit longer. And we're expecting payload capacity of 100 to 150 tons, depending on which orbit. So to a Starlink orbit, roughly 100 tons. Over time, I think we can probably get the orbit for orbital refilling, the payload to an orbit for orbital refilling to about 200 tons, which is going to be very important for getting to Mars. So for getting to Mars, you also need the orbital refilling. Just like you have aerial refueling, the rockets will need orbital refilling. It's actually mostly oxygen. There's 3.5 tons of oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel. So that's why it's refilling, not refueling. Heat shield. So this is the world's largest heat shield. And this is, we actually make this at our little factory in Florida near Cape Canaveral. We call it the bakery. And we're actually using a lot of techniques that are used for roofing tiles. So we need to have a heat shield that is capable of resisting extreme heat, but also is not crazy expensive. And our heat shield team has done amazing work in creating the world's largest heat shield, and one that is reusable, but also robust and
they're saying
robust.
those tiles are about the size of
it's not
your
a crazy
average
and
dinner plate.
Yeah, need good heat shield technology for entering from orbit.
That's good.
Orbital refilling. We were going to do an animation of this, but it looked a bit wrong.
Yeah, it would.
It is a fluid transfer.
Oh, he's dirty-minded as get out.
So, yeah. Play a little Barry White, Okay. So that's one of the technologies that is necessary for getting to Mars. So the ship would get to orbit with its payload, and then then in orbit, we'd refill the tanks so it'd have enough propellant to get to Mars. Mars is far. So now this is essentially docking in orbit, and with Dragon docking with the space station, this is a technology that that SpaceX has become quite good at. We've done, I think at this point, a couple dozen dockings with the space station, and it's actually way harder to dock with the space station than to dock with yourself. So this is, it is a thing we need to solve for Starship, and I'm confident that we can do this because we've done a lot of orbital docking already with the Dragon. But this is going to be an important thing to demonstrate. What won't be necessary in the near term for Starlink launches, but it will be necessary for Mars and the Moon. So let's see, the super heavy booster. So
Now,
it
here's
was
the
17
numbers that's going to
meters.
surprise you.
But then there was an extra half barrel section that the team deleted, and totally accidentally, it's 69 meters. It's also booster 4 and ship 20. I mean, this is a pure coincidence. Those numbers won't leave me alone. It was just, I hope it's good luck.
Zoom in, let me
yeah,
see
so
this one. Come on, guys.
so propellant capacity is like around 3,400 tons. I think this, like I said, these it'll probably it will increase over time. Probably get to 36, maybe 3,800 tons. Thrust is around 7,600 tons. That'll probably increase too over time. Just to put this into perspective, though, the Saturn V
There it
was
is.
7.5 million pounds of thrust, and Starship is 17. So it's more than twice the thrust of a Saturn V, which was that's the largest rocket ever to get to orbit. It's worth noting Super Heavy is the largest flying object of any kind, or will be. It's yeah, very big. You can see it right there. That booster has 29 engines. The next booster, we actually increased the engine count to 33. We've kind of bounced around on engine count, but because I think at one point we had like 37
Looks like
engines.
they're all individually gimbal.
They went to 29.
The
So
center
we finally settled
engines
on
are
33
the
engines,
outer
which is about
engines are
actually the most number
fixed.
of engines you can actually fit
Okay.
under that booster without like expanding the diameter. Yeah, and then this tower, this tower from design to
Sorry, I've got a cat
construction
here.
was 13 months.
Tried to get up my nose.
So it's quite an epic structure.
13 months from design to
It's really
completion.
worth emphasizing that
That's impressive.
the whole launch system, which is basically stage 0,
Yeah, there it goes.
is,
He doesn't have
I'd
to
say
deal
as
with
complex and
Congress
difficult
either,
as
though.
Yeah.
either the booster
That's
or the ship.
that is the actual
So,
lift.
I really want to emphasize that this is and it's a very difficult thing that requires a lot of hardcore engineering, and it's really
That's not animation.
Like I said,
No,
the tower and the launch
yeah.
system, which I call stage 0, is just as important.
And the
as
little
stage 1 and
lights you
stage
see
2.
zipping around is a drone.
Okay.
I mean, this is really some wild
So
stuff
it's
here.
speeded up a bit
In fact,
Yeah.
I mean, hard to believe it's real,
because
except
it looks like a bug.
Yeah.
it's right there. So
Which is just
Yeah.
that in itself was amazing.
I know. That was good.
then Raptor development, Raptor 1
What do you
was
think
185
Dr.
tons
Von
of thrust.
Braun would have thought of
Raptor
this?
2 is 230 tons of thrust, and I think
Von Braun
over
would have been
time,
thrilled.
we can get that to probably 250 tons.
Okay, yeah, there's a good
So
view
that's,
of the
and it's also
one and version 1, version 2.
significantly simplified.
Version 1 on the
You can
left,
see the
version
difference
2 on the
between,
right.
V1 and V2. The V2 is V1 looks kind of like a Christmas tree spaghetti pile. A lot of fiddly bits, and V2 is greatly simplified while also increasing thrust at the same time. So it actually Raptor 2 costs about half as much as Raptor 1, despite having much more thrust, and I think just generally being a much easier engine to build. and a more robust engine. So
That's a good
very
thing.
excited about Raptor.
That one on the
version
left,
2, and
my
it's
gosh,
only gonna
Tiddly
get-
Bits is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Good clean burn.
Mm-hmm. You can't, from this angle, you can't really see the blue
So,
diamonds,
yeah,
but I
so
can see where
Raptor
they should be
pretty
because of the
sick.
shape
Yeah.
of the.
And we've actually the peak thrust that we've operated Raptor to at this point is 247 tons. And so I'm confident that
247
as soon as
tons of thrust.
we can get to a 250 ton operating point.
Of course, that's
And,
he's speaking in
and
metric
continue
tons.
to simplify and
Yeah.
sort of robustify the engine. So it's really it's a spectacular piece of engineering. Extremely difficult to make and succeed. Engine has been mind-bogglingly difficult, but it is one of the essential keys to. I mean, it is essential, obviously, to making Starship work. It'll be the first full flow stage combustion engine to get to orbit. Yeah, kind of need that ISP and thrust to weight. So
There's not that much difference between a metric
why
ton and
Starbase?
imperial ton.
A lot of people like to say like why
Metric
Starbase?
Ton is slightly
why
bigger,
here?
but it's
And
Oh, it's bigger.
we kind of needed a confluence of
slightly
factors. The getting to orbit, you want to launch eastward
it's like
so that you have
1 metric
help
ton to
from Earth's
0.98
rotation. So
imperial
the closer you are
tons.
to the equator, the more of a sort of a boost from Earth rotation that you get. So you want to be
Armchair
as
Rocket
south as
Science just
possible,
asked,
and
"Are
launch
we coming
eastward.
over?" Yeah. After this is
and
over, it's
it's always possible.
it's probably
that,
about 20 more
something goes
minutes.
wrong.
That's what I'm figuring.
And so you want to have a
And
good
before
clear
we
area.
go over
You
to
want,
stupid o'clock.
Yes.
several miles
Okay, yeah.
around the launch site to be unpopulated or at least clearable. And that doesn't actually leave a lot of options. It's basically here and Cape Canaveral or Cape Kennedy is where are the other two possibilities. And then because we had a lot of launches going out of the Cape, we didn't want to disrupt the Cape activity, the operational launches, with sort of the advanced R&D of Starship. So it was important to decouple the operational launches from the R&D launches, and that's why we're at this location. And once again, I'd just like to thank Cameron County and the Brownsville South Padre and the remaining residents of Boca Chica Village.
They're actually building these rockets so fast that they're
where I live, by the
scrapping
way. It's my primary residence is that little village over there.
halfway through
So,
construction because they've got a better version out.
And it's been great.
Wow.
It's been great being here, and
Nice.
super appreciate the support of the community. Anyway, thank you. Yeah. So I think we've got a video to show what we hope will happen with launch. We'll play it now.
Yeah,
Oh, wait,
you stand up
sorry.
and wait for him to get the.
We have some upcoming Starship missions. Orbital flight is really just the beginning. So we're going to have a number of Starlink missions that will launch Starlink satellite version 2. But even more exciting than that is the NASA human spaceflight mission. We're incredibly honored that NASA has selected Starship to take astronauts back to the moon for the first time in half a century, which is kind of mind-blowing. So, I'd just like to say, like,
I've been
SpaceX
saying
is
that
just
for years
deeply
now.
honored and appreciative that,
Yes.
that NASA would
And
choose
you know
us
it.
for this.
Oh,
We
yeah.
need to go back to the
mission.
moon.
We need to.
And,
You absolutely. We should have
it's
been. We should have
And then
been
there's
on the
also
moon
the
in the
Dear Moon
90s.
mission, which is
oh yeah,
um,
it's going to wind up
going
being,
to take
if we're going to be
artists
a
around the moon, and
multiplanetary
that's
civilization,
Isaku
it's
Miyazawa,
going to
and
be a
he's
fundamental part of our
going to
infrastructure.
select I think
Oh,
a dozen
yeah.
If for no
artists
other reason than
and
it's
do a
easier
mission
to
on the
get
moon.
Prototyping.
off of.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, it's
And
easier to
there's
get
going to
off
be
of.
some
Yeah,
future
you can be
announcements that I
home.
think
Be
will
home in
keep
2
you
or 3
fired up about.
days instead of a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, super exciting future ahead with this.
We can
There'll probably
go
be a few
there.
bumps in
We
the
can
road,
practice.
but we
Yeah.
want to iron those out with satellite missions and test missions, and get to a high flight rate, and then have something that's extremely reliable for human spaceflight. So yeah.
Oh, this must be the launch animation. And they do intend to have 2 towers down there. And possibly 2 at 39. That's a mess of engines, ain't it?
It is.
Yeah, that's the 33 configuration. This stage separation's interesting.
They're doing a better job of the recreation than Apollo 13 did.
Yeah. Yeah, the booster actually initiates the separation. It's the Starship has little pins that stick down, and the booster has a locking pin. At MECO, the locking pin comes off, and they twist the rocket to make it kick loose. Yeah, it's a refueling ship.
Oxidizer.
Yeah.
Retanking. And see, if you put something like that, like the refiller in orbit, you can have an on-orbit station, or you could put it at the L1 point or something like that.
Yeah.
For it to refuel. So it's never Earth. You can make it to where it was never Earthbound.
Yeah. It's got 3 vacuum and 3 sea levels. Vacuum for in space, and the sea levels for landing.
I want to see what they do to land once they get there. Dadgummit. Okay,
What?
Here we go. I thought they were going to end it there. Olympus Mons.
Yeah.
So they're going.
It'll come
Um,
in on a belly flop.
Well, their their concept for the city for the colony is nice,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't survive it
No,
because
the radiation.
right. They'll have to put it underground.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
All right. Let's make this real. Any questions? Let's make this real. Cool. Fire away. Anyone? I can't see you, so you probably just have to yell it out or something. Yes, there's 6 Raptors on Starship. Currently 3 with the vacuum nozzle, 3 sea level. Sorry?
Check.
And I think if I would say, like, we'll probably end up adding another 3 vacuum engines. They kind of, fill in the gaps and stretch the ship. I think is going to make a lot of sense. You'll have to yell, unfortunately. So we are building a launch site, a Starship launch tower at 39A at Cape Kennedy. And we're also building a Starship production facility at the Cape. So we'll have production facility and launch site here and a production facility and launch site at the Cape as well.
Nice.
It's important to have
run
redundancy.
both in parallel.
So,
Yeah.
It's Irene Klotz with Aviation Week over here.
I've got lights in my eyes, so unfortunately I can't see.
Okay, well,
I'm blinded. So I can hear where
we're
the
all
speaker is
here.
coming from.
Okay.
But,
You should. I believe you're expecting to hear in a couple weeks about the possible finding of no significant impact from the FAA. Have you gotten any indications if that's going to come through, and what is your time frame for the orbital flight test? Thanks.
well, we don't have a ton of insight into where things stand with the FAA. We have gotten sort of a rough indication that there may be an approval in March, but that's all we know.
So,
That's all
hi,
he's gonna
Elon.
say.
Marcus Hervey. Can you talk about the point-to-point capability? Is there a possibility between here and Cape Canaveral?
Oh, well, yeah, I guess technically yes. So, I mean, depending on how good things get with Starship, there are some scenarios where it might actually be the lowest cost means of transporting cargo long distances. So the interesting thing is
Suborbital
that
hops.
the capital
Yeah.
efficiency of a rocket is much better than the capital efficiency of a plane for long distance flights. So now this would really be more for if you're going, like, I don't know, a quarter or third or halfway around the world, where if you went from, I don't know, say here to Singapore or something, like, that's a long flight. So, I mean, I don't know how long that is. I'm not sure you can even go there nonstop, but it's probably like 20 hours plus. And but in a rocket, it would be less than an hour, so like 45 minutes or thereabouts. So that means you'd be able to use the rocket 20 times more often than an aircraft. So it's 20 times the capital efficiency. So provided the propellant cost is competitive with aircraft, and bear in mind, like I was saying, like there's 3.5 tons of liquid oxygen for every 1 ton of fuel.
It's about
So
20
and
and a
liquid
half
oxygen
hours
is
from
basically just
Texas to Singapore.
the cost of electricity. and because it's in the air basically. So there is a scenario where it's economically compelling to do long distance cargo and people transport with Starship. That'd be very cool, and I think that'd be great for getting a high flight rate and a business case for supporting a lot of Starships operating. Basically, nothing's faster than an ICBM.
We got a question right here, Elon, right in the middle, right here, right, hands up in the middle.
I mean, I literally have lights in my eyes, and it's pitch dark in front of me.
It's fine. Hi, Elon. Michael Sheets with CNBC. You opened this presentation by addressing a little bit of the criticism that's been aimed at space travel being seen as maybe a pet project or not really valuable to folks who have problems here on Earth. I was wondering if you get a little more into the specifics on comparing not just the U.S. government spending that's happening on space travel versus other things, but maybe in terms of SpaceX itself, how you and private investment on a dollar value compares to the taxpayer-funded projects or contracts that SpaceX has won over the years.
Well, I think objectively the cost efficiency of SpaceX is the best in history, I think, for any rocket development, and we are talking about a rocket that's more than twice the mass and thrust of a Saturn V, and also designed to be fully reusable, which is obviously also much better from an environmental standpoint to have a fully reusable rocket, for a development cost that is, I don't know, between 5 and 10% of Saturn V. So that's pretty good. Because we need to make it work. So it's not worked yet, but it will work. Might be a few bumps along the road, but it'll work. I feel at this point highly confident that we'll get to orbit this year. That's we're making a lot of rockets, making a lot of engines. We're close to achieving a Raptor 2 every day production rate.
Where does he call home these
7 a
days?
week,
Right there.
which is
Okay.
it's tough for a complex engine.
He lives in
I
a
think
container home,
by the end of this year, we'll be able to produce
okay.
ship and a booster per month.
a $50,000 converted container home.
This is I don't know, at least an order of magnitude, maybe 2 orders of magnitude
Did
Very-
he,
more efficient than anything in the past.
Did he what?
did he change citizenship?
Yeah, he's an American citizen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just
There's a joke
Elon,
there,
is-
but it
or your
wouldn't.
left
It's
Jupiter
not proper to
cluster.
make. But
No,
Just
yes.
wondering,
yeah.
what does SpaceX's plan and timeline look like? If
I just
the
hadn't
FAA
thought
ultimately
to ask anybody.
decides
Yeah.
to do a deeper environmental
Holy
review
crap, I
of,
think I know that guy.
Starbase? And then one other thing, you might be able to give us an updated figure on what it costs to Starship and what it would cost a customer to buy a flight on one. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I am optimistic that we will get approval. Like I think objectively, I think this is not something that will be harmful to the environment. We've obviously flown the ship several times and done multiple landings and takeoffs and landings. We've fired the engines a lot, so I think the reality is that it would not have a significant impact. Now, of course, that doesn't mean things don't get delayed from a regulatory standpoint, and we are in a litigious society, and so there's always sort of lawsuits from someone, lawsuit city. Now we do have the alternative of the Cape, and we actually applied for environmental approval for launch from the Cape a few years ago and received it. So we actually are approved from an environmental standpoint to launch from 39A. So I guess our worst case scenario is that we would, I don't know, be delayed for 6 to 8 months to build up the Cape launch tower and launch from there. From a cost standpoint, the costs will improve significantly over time. So, because it'll take us a moment to achieve full reusability and full and rapid reusability, we'll probably lose a few vehicles along the way. With
At least he's honest
Falcon
about it.
9, I think it took us
Yeah.
14, 15 attempts to successfully land the first booster. I don't think it'll take us that many with Starship because we have that experience. But it's certainly not a sure thing that it'll work the first time. I mean, from a cost standpoint, I mean,
And one of the things they have
orbit,
are
on a
working on
marginal
right
cost to launch
now
basis,
to make their methane,
that doesn't count.
they're actually going to scrub CO2 out of the atmosphere.
It may be as little as
Yeah, I
a few
saw
million
that. I was just looking up the information about fuel.
maybe even as
So
low as $1 million. So this is crazy,
smaller
crazy low
engines
numbers,
use
by space standards.
RP1,
Crazy
which
low.
is basically
the
purified
Falcon
kerosene,
9.
We
Yeah.
do have to cover
which
fixed
was
costs. So,
what the
depending on what our launch rate is, we have to
Saturn
divide the fixed
used.
cost by
Yeah.
the number of launches. So the more launches that happen,
And this one's going to
the
use
lower the
methane, but
total,
they're
cost of
so their
the
launches
cost
could
of
very
flight
much
would
be carbon neutral with this once they get that production in full
But I'm highly
swing.
confident it would be less than $10 million all in over, if you say like fast forward like 2 or 3 years from now, I think it's highly likely to be everything included.
Yeah, it really
less
would,
than $10
because
million a flight for 100-ton to orbit capability, and 100 tons to a
sitting here
useful
looking
orbit,
at
not
the
to a low
combustion
orbit, to a
products
low
of
orbit of
methane.
150 tons. So this is ridiculously good compared to everything else, and it should be, because if you think of like if this was if aircraft were not reusable, how much would an air ticket cost? I mean, it's like, for I don't know what a 787 or 777 goes for these days. I don't know, a few $100 million. If you had to spend $200 million every flight, it would be very expensive to fly somewhere, and you'd need 2 of them for another one for the return trip. So it would obviously be absurd. So if you can imagine if we were in a world where aircraft were expendable, and then someone came along with a reusable aircraft, it would be an absolutely profound game changer. That's what needs to happen for life to become multiplanetary, and that's what this design, I'm confident, is capable of that. It's just a question of how long it will take to refine that and have it really dialed.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Sorry, this is Andrea Leinfelder of the Houston Chronicle. I wanted to know, when and how do you plan to test Starship refueling in space? And also, aside from NASA, Dear Moon, and Starlink, can you elaborate on the potential customer base for Starship? Thank you.
I apologize. I zoned out for a second. I was just thinking about something. Could you say that question again?
Sorry. When and
We have some mic issues.
Okay. When and how do you plan to test Starship refueling in space?
Yeah.
And aside from NASA, Dear Moon, and Starlink, can you elaborate on potential customers for Starship? Thank you.
I think orbital refilling, and I want to emphasize it is refilling, not refueling, because it's 3.5 times as much oxygen than fuel. So we mostly are carrying oxygen up there. I optimistically, towards the end of next year, I think I'd be surprised if it's longer than 2 years for doing the refilling. And there are a lot of additional customers that will want to use Starship. I don't want to steal their thunder. They're going to make their announcements, and but I think this will get a lot of use, a lot of attention. It's like I said, once we make this work, it's an utterly profound breakthrough in access to orbit. And when you have an utterly profound breakthrough, the use cases will be hard to imagine. I mean, you know, when aircraft first came along, aircraft were viewed as toys, like they were like a novelty, not a means of transport. They were like, oh look, we can fly like a bird briefly and dangerously for a few minutes.
There's actually talk
You know,
amongst
nobody
some of the
at the time,
SpaceX
or at least I think very few people
groups
at the time,
Mhm.
that
that
they're
there would
also
be
discussing a
a
possible
global aircraft
Hubble
industry with
retrieval
airports
for the
throughout the world
Smithsonian.
carrying people
Nice.
to every part of
Wouldn't that be
Earth
nice to go into
in
the
a ridiculously short period of
Smithsonian
time.
and see Hubble
Um,
hanging up over Discovery?
you know,
Yeah.
when the Wright brothers first took off, I mean, most people were just riding horses. So you're like, oh, you know, like riding a horse, see this crazy device, looks like witchcraft. And they would not have imagined that there would be aircraft flying, you know, tens of thousands of aircraft flying to every corner of the world. So I think we made this really could be an extremely profound situation, and we really can't even imagine all the use cases at this point.
I'm still here. I just got
Hi,
to cut the
Elon.
camera off for a
This is
second.
Steve Clark with the Brownsville Herald. Thank you for the presentation. So if the FAA does come back and say we need an EIS, does Starbase bounce back from that at some point?
Yeah, I mean, it would obviously set us back for quite some time because an EIS takes a lot longer than an EA. So we would have to shift our priorities to Cape Kennedy.
Okay, and long term, what do you envision for Starbase? Like a spaceport with flights coming and going and Starship manufacturing, or what is the future role of Starbase?
The future role of Starbase, I think, it's well suited to be kind of like our advanced R&D location. So it's like where we would try out new designs and new versions of the rocket, and then I think probably Cape Kennedy would be our sort of main operational launch site. And then, I don't know, over time, I think we'll have floating spaceports, like ocean spaceports. We got these two converted oil rigs that are going to be turned into orbital launch sites. And they can be moved around the world. So, you know, that I think there could be quite a few of those. You know, I think about like, if I think about like what would really work for long distance travel, because the rocket is quite loud. You want to be, you know, I don't know, 20 miles away from a major city or 30 miles away from a major city, just so you don't, you know, you're not you know, disturbing people.
What was that?
Rockets are loud. That's just the way it is.
Probably most of the launch sites long term will be kind of ocean or sea spaceports. So like maybe located like 20 miles, 30 miles offshore. And this would allow Starship to connect any cities that are on the ocean or on the sea, and have a high flight rate, but without disturbing people too much. You know, I think people are willing to, you know, have something that's loud occasionally, but if you want to have it frequently, then it probably needs to be offshore.
That's
Hello,
an
Elon.
idea. I
I'm
like that.
Cam Gerlach with the SpaceX Reddit community.
Say what?
So you've talked a lot about how Raptor 2 is
I didn't hear.
obviously important for Starship development.
An
and the
offshore
future of
launch and
Starship.
landing site.
So I'm curious.
Yeah, wasn't that
what general
proposed
improvements
back
have
in
you made
the
with Raptor
60s
2,
called Sea
to ensure
Dragon?
it's not only more efficient, more powerful, but also much easier to produce and less expensive as well and faster. And how do you plan to continue to iterate further on the design in the future?
So, Raptor 2 is an almost complete redesign relative to Raptor 1. So basically, everything from the turbo machinery to the chamber nozzle, the electronics, basically everything's been redesigned. You can see the difference over there, the Raptor 1 versus Raptor 2. The a lot of the changes were deleting things. We deleted a lot, consolidated a lot. The rotating machinery, especially the inducers of the turbo pumps, are a lot more robust. We converted a bunch of flanges to welds, and we're actually over time will convert even more flanges to welds. I hate flanges, especially if you've got high pressure and then cryogenic fluid or super hot gas. Flanges and seals are a nightmare, and so we've got parts of that engine that are sort of 700-800 bar, sort of 11, 12,000 psi, which is nutty. And so just going to welded joints instead of flanges was pretty helpful. The pre-burner controllers have been consolidated into a sort of a unified box as opposed to being kind of like all over the engine. And we're getting close to the point where I think Raptor will not need shrouds. So shrouds are a huge pain in the ass, like basically putting a whole shield around the engine, especially for the gimbaling engines, where it's got to kind of have a sort of eyeball seal, like it's like rotating in a circle with a hot gas seal. With a bit more deletion and integration, I think the engine will be sort of flame proof, more or less, and then we can get rid of the shrouds, which would be a big mass savings. Yeah. So a lot more could go on. We're also operating at a high
an engine
pressure.
without a shield to protect it from heat.
I think we could probably operate.
Well, if you
I
don't
think
have
over time
any
we can
leaks,
operate
you
at
don't need a
30 bar sustained in the main chamber. And without having the pre-burner pressures be too high.
Which rolls back to the best part is no part.
Not
Yeah.
by losing less pressure. There's like a whole pressure ladder.
the
going
more
from
the more
turbo
of
pumps
that
and
that you
pre-burners
can
to
eliminate,
the main chamber,
the
and
more weight
by
that you can
getting rid of a
assign to
bunch of the choke
payload.
points,
Yeah,
we
that's
have
that's
less
his
pressure
goal.
loss, and so the pumps can effectively produce more pressure in the main chamber due to less loss in the secondary systems. Do you have any? I have specific questions or?
Sorry, yeah, Chris Gebhardt with NASA Spaceflight. Can you talk a little bit about the abort modes that are available for ship if there were ever to be a problem during the climb to orbit? What would be available to the crew in that regard? And also on that same level, the life support systems.
Sadly,
for
the
ship,
only thing for that
where do
is
those stand,
shuttle.
and what are the challenges that you're finding with just the sheer volume in Starship for that? Thank you.
So Starship will not have an independent abort system, but I think something that would make sense is to have the thruster weight of the ship be enough that it could do it could take off from the booster, even if the booster has a failure at the pad level. So if you get the thrust weight of the ship at sea level above 1, then even if there is something goes wrong with the booster, the ship can essentially fly away from the booster. And so that's something that I think would be important for carrying people.
Okay, that's the first time he's talked about that.
To have the ship have thrust weight greater than 1, even at sea level.
Well, it's an extension of the escape
like I said,
tower
that would be like
on the Apollo.
And then even if you lost one engine, I think you should still be able to do an abort. So I think for crewed missions, we would essentially maybe detank the ship to some degree so that you'd have kind of a launch abort capability with the ship, even if you lost an engine. That'd be my recommendation. From a life support standpoint, we would have a sort of a renewable, like for long, we could scale up the life.
His
support
brain's
system of
running
Dragon, which
faster
certainly
than his
be
mouth can think.
Mine does that.
And that
That
would
was
work
particularly
for
bad when I was a
missions that
kid
are,
at that.
say, a week or 2 weeks. That would be fine. For missions to Mars, you'd want a life support system that is renewable. So it's essentially recycling everything in a closed loop system with close to zero lost mass. So that would be a more advanced system. You'd have to convert the CO2 back into O2 and kind of recycle, poop and urine and stuff. So that's a harder problem, but it's not an immediate problem. We can certainly scale up Dragon for any kind of missions that are, a few weeks long.
Hi, Elon. Eric Berger with Ars Technica. Thanks for taking some questions. I'm wondering if you do get that approval from the FAA in March. I know that there's really no way of knowing, but could you talk a little bit about the hardware readiness, sort of where you are technically? The launch tower is pretty incredible, but sort of the rocket, the ground system, software. Like if you were to get some kind of approval from the FAA in March, would you be looking at, how quickly could the hardware be ready to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're close to having the hardware ready to go. So right now, I think we're tracking to have the regulatory approval and hardware readiness around the same time. So around the same. Hopefully, basically a couple months for both.
Hi, Seth Krakowski with SpaceXport.com. You mentioned launching from the sea. Could you give us an update on the current status of using Phobos and Deimos for Starship operations?
Yeah, so Phobos and Deimos thus far have been a relatively low priority. We needed to make the launch site here work. This has been quite a difficult endeavor. So we deprioritized the Phobos and Deimos. And just last month, we started to, we're going to take one of them and build at least a catch tower on it. So, and ultimately we will, ultimately meaning like, I don't know, later this year, build a full launch capability on one of the platforms. So I think hopefully by the end of this year, we will have a launch capability at Cape Kennedy at 39A and on one of the ocean platforms as well.
Hi, Ellen. This is Adam Cardona with CBS 4 and NBC 23 here in the Rio Grande Valley. This is more of a community-based question. This past week, several BISD students, community leaders, and community members got together to ask you a question and to show their gratitude. Not sure if you got that message yet, but they were saying thank you, Elon, and they wanted to know if you would be able to attend their Charros Days festivities here in Brownsville. So on behalf of them, will you be attending Charros Days?
It sounds like fun. So like, when is it?
I believe it starts on the 19th through the 25th. So you have several days to attend Sombrero Festival, Charros Days parades, enjoy some great food. Will we see you there?
I will be there.
All right.
When he said food, he was in.
Yeah.
That's going to be hard to follow up. Hey, Elon.
Tim Dodd.
Everybody asking right here. Okay, so a little bit more Raptor 2 talk again. Where are you at as far as production? How many do you have? Are they how are they handling testing? Are they more cantankerous, less cantankerous? Just give us a little more rundown, like on where actually is that a bottleneck for the next booster as well? We assume the next booster is going to require Raptor 2. So kind of where you at with the production and the testing so far?
Well, I mean, right now, of any technical problem, I'm spending.
Well, now I know
most
how to get
time
Elon to
personally
Helicon.
on Raptor 2.
Tell him you'll feed him good.
Like really,
Which you do.
like the two things that occupy the most number of mental cycles are Raptor 2 and Tesla Full Self Driving. So the only remaining issue that we're aware of is melting the chamber. So if that thing really wants to melt, it's got like on the order of a gigawatt of heat, so it's pretty hot. Like a gigawatt's like what a nuclear power plant produces. So it really is desperately trying to melt at any point in time. So we've got, we're flowing an immense amount of cryogenic fuel to cool the chamber in the channels. We have head end film cooling. We've got throat film cooling, and we're just trying to get the exact sort of balance between head end film cooling and throat film cooling to not melt the chamber. I think we're pretty close. Like we have a couple engines in the stand that have I think 700 or 800 seconds of operation and several start cycles. So it's looking positive, but that's the remaining issue is melting the chamber. But in the meantime, we're scaling up old production to get to 1 a day or better. So apart from melted chambers, we're doing well. We've got a lot of pumps, a lot of electronics, a lot of pre-burner controllers. So just not melting the chamber.
I wonder what the pressure is in the chamber.
330 is what they've hit. What they've hit.
330 what?
But I think we're very
Bar.
close to solving that.
And
then
okay.
The production system has a lot of momentum, like I
No
said.
wonder they're having trouble with it.
We're really, like
they're trying to get all out of it they can.
At least 5 or 6
Yeah.
Raptor 2s.
If they scale it back, it'd still be the most powerful thing built.
At 7 a week or better.
I'm just trying to work out the chamber problem.
Yeah.
I was going to suggest
those are crazy
ceramic,
numbers for rocket
but I
engines, by
don't
the
think
way.
ceramic will handle that pressure.
No.
Hi,
Diamond?
Robert Perlin with Space.com and Collect Space. You mentioned the
Yeah,
NASA
that
contract
kind of
for the
puts it
human
out
landing
of the-
system.
out of the-
At one point, do you
Price
envision
range.
splintering
yeah.
off development of Starship for HLS, or how are you going to balance the timelines of rapid reusability versus NASA's own schedule of when they're ready to go to the moon?
I don't think there's really a conflict there. We're going to be making a lot of ships, a lot of boosters, obviously a lot of engines. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like with the booster with 33 engines and the ship with 9 engines is 42. There we go again. And that also total coincidence. So adding legs to land on the moon, we do not think is like that can be done pretty quickly.
Yeah, you've already proved
So
that works.
Yeah, I don't really see any conflict between achieving rapid reusability and getting to the moon.
You said how many Tor did you say?
Yeah.
On what?
A high production rate solves many
Chamber.
ills.
330.
So we're aiming for a high production rate.
Hi, Lauren Grush with The Verge. I'm wondering if you can clarify the number of launches that you plan to conduct in order to do these refillings. I know a lot of numbers have been thrown around, so I'm wondering if you have landed on a final number, and how quickly do you plan to launch those missions back to back to refuel the vehicle to get to the moon? Thanks.
Yeah, so the missions would happen pretty fast for
Say what?
The vehicle.
You might be able to use a
minimize
ceramic.
boil-up of the cryogenic propellants.
That's about a half an atmosphere.
So now for the vehicle going to the
What?
moon, we're
330
have some,
total.
installation
Bar.
to minimize
Bar.
boil-off.
Okay.
Yeah.
But we'd probably be launching, I don't know, probably every few hours.
Okay, that's about. Yeah, never mind.
Aspirational.
Bar is an atmosphere, so.
Yeah.
Hi, Elon. Kevin Haymeyer from Space Eccentric on YouTube and Rumble. My viewers are really hungry to know anything about the interior design for crewed Starship. You have HLS, you have Deer Moon, and last we heard, maybe a year or two ago, you were looking to hire Tesla employees to design the interior for Starship. How's that going?
Well, we aren't focusing a lot on the interior quite yet. I mean, that will be important down the road, but
Gotta get it to
our
fly
focus
first,
right
bud.
now is just getting to orbit and
Do what?
proving out
You got to get it to fly first, bud.
return of the booster and return of the ship.
Because right now that's
Yeah.
dead weight.
It's fundamentally very difficult to build a fully reusable rocket, given the strength of Earth's gravity and the density of our atmosphere. Like there's no, you can't have a lot of mass margin. So our focus is solving that rapid reusability. Like I said, we'll have a high production rate, so we're not dependent on full reusability, but really that's the breakthrough that's fundamentally important to change the course of human civilization to become a multi-planet species.
Elon, this will be the last question for you.
Evening, Elon. Bob Duncan. I'm a local resident. Are we cutting out? Is that better? Hi, evening. My name is Bob Duncan. I'm a local resident here in the area. And first off, thank you for a very cool evening. So this has been a lot of fun for us. As a local resident, it's been exciting to watch the amazing progress that SpaceX has made here in Boca Chica. And I was just curious, we're standing on the southern tip of the state of Texas. We're a few hundred yards from your residence. Could you just speak to what, if anything, has been appealing or advantageous about operating in the state of Texas versus other parts of the country? Thank you.
That heavy set
Well,
guy
I
in the
think
back,
the
standing behind him with the glasses and the SpaceX hat on, that's a friend of mine. We actually
well, I
do
mean,
a
we've had
couple
lot of
shows
support
together.
from the community, and something that just happens over time with societies is that kind of rules and regulations build up, and they build up, more in some places than others, and they didn't, I think Texas has the right amount of rules and regulations. Yeah. So, thank you all for coming. I hope you've enjoyed the evening, and I think we might be able to get you closer to the rocket if you'd like. So we'll get you as close as possible while still being safe. Yeah, feel free to take pictures, have a good time, and let's go like hell to have an exciting future. Thank you.
And that was Elon's presentation. And as you saw, he flew off the cuff on every answer.
The fact, though, letting you in on a little secret from
Yeah.
somebody who's used to doing presentations and stuff.
Yeah.
The fact that he had a PowerPoint presentation
Helped.
served as his notes, as it were.
Yeah.
So
Cutting
that
my volume down just a little bit.
okay.
But yeah, and they were saying earlier on some of the other pre-show channels,
Mm-hmm.
okay, they just threw their logo up, so we will just actually completely kill that beast and talk for just a minute, and then we're going to jump over to that other show that's not science related.
Although I sometimes throw some in.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things we say. Just careful, if you watch it long enough, you might accidentally learn something.
Yep.
They were saying before the presentation they had the spotlights on the rocket.
Mm-hmm.
They were also releasing O2, venting O2 out of the tank farm to give like a fog, and it gave off vibes of the Saturn V sitting on the pad.
Oh.
With the little bit of fog running through the lights.
Mm-hmm.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I had this little note set up here so I could take notes on what he said and didn't type one word.
Well, basically he's making the case for space exploration and space colonization. And I think he makes a very good case. And I'm sure you've heard some of the same arguments from me in recent years. So,
and funding, his comment on funding.
Very much so. I'm sorely tempted. If I knew how to send anything to him, I'm sorely tempted to send him a few books and whatnot.
Well, I will get on to that.
Okay.
And we'll do that. Thanks everybody that's tuned in, watching on replay. We've had a few people drop in and out through the live broadcast, but I want to thank them also. But I also want to throw a thank you out to Jen Thompson, Bill Sartain, and I guess it was John Scarborough, who is running as moderator on the Armchair Rocket Science Facebook page. But I want to thank you for being here, Stephanie. That was very interesting. You do have the link to the other show, correct?
I do.
Okay. And I'll be there in just a second.
Okay.
So with that, we don't have a closing here. We just say, I guess we'll see you next time at the launch pad.
Okay. Godspeed, John Glenn.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
Good night.